Hello and welcome. Today I want to talk a little bit about my own experiences with computers and cryptocurrency, and while this is not financial advice in any way, it is just a little bit of word of warning based on my own long experience with computers. And all cryptocurrency basically lives on a hard drive somewhere, or a NAND flash device, which is basically the same thing in terms of reliability. For those of you who are unaware, hard drives or even flash drives are basically like disappearing ink. And due to just the general atmospheric, or the radiation of the ether, you could say, or the radiation of the sun, or wherever the radiation is coming from, but it's there, trust me, you start to get what's called bit rot, and hard drives fail after about 5 years. They can usually be safely used for 3, maybe 4, depending on the hard drive. But even if it's just sitting in a drawer, it's going to bit rot. You could just record something to a hard drive and let it sit in a drawer for 10 years, and you're going to be able to come back, and that drive is going to be unreadable. And this is a problem computers have had since the very beginning. The closest thing we have to an archival store of data is magnetic tape, which also fails, but for different reasons and at a different time scale, and Gold Master DVRs, or now there's M-Discs, which is like a stone layer DVD, Blu-ray. But those can have their own problems too. They're not perfect, but the most reliable at this point is basically Gold Master archival DVRs, which nobody seems to be using to store their cryptocurrency on, which I find fascinating. Maybe there are some people out there, but they're not talking about it. It certainly came up to me because as I started getting into cryptocurrency, everybody was saying, oh, well, if you don't have it on your own cryptocurrency wallet, it's not really yours. And I get that. I get that it can be leveraged by the exchanges. If you just leave it on the exchange, you have no guarantee that you have all of their cryptocurrency there. It could just be, they could just be covering a portion of it. Excuse me. However, then you get into the problems of hardware wallets being a computing device, basically. So I went out and I bought a Trezor, and I got the Trezor, and because I want to be secure, I started doing a Shamir seed start. So for those of you that don't know, I'll put a link in the description, but a Shamir seed is basically just a more secure way of having a seed to recover your cryptocurrency should you lose it. So I tried 5 different times, I believe, to set up my Shamir seed with 9 different, it was going to be 9 different pages of 25 words, basically. And by if you only had a certain number of those pages, which you could spread around to all of your friends, then you could recover your seed should a problem happen. Now, of course, this doesn't give you any way to recover it if your device has actually failed, but this is assuming an online backup of the device through their servers, the manufacturer's servers. So, I kept trying to create the seed, and every time I went through it, it only got halfway done at most, and then it would crash. And this is kind of a pain in the butt, honestly, because to do it safely, you're writing out longhand on a piece of paper all of these little words, each with their own number, so you know where it comes in sequence. And I just got fed up after the 5th attempt and sent a reply to tech support, which was difficult anyway because they didn't respond for days and days and days. And they even sent me an auto reply saying, we're super inundated, we won't be able to respond quickly. And so then eventually I sent something on Twitter and added them, and that got a response. So I guess because I poked them publicly, I was able to get some kind of technical support. And they did this most bizarre thing, is they requested that I record the seed setup. So, okay, you know, being a YouTuber, I'm like, okay, I've got all the gear. So I did a setup and got out of, you know, I normally live in a tent, but I went inside a house to do this, just for convenience sake. And there I did. I recorded out the entire seed sequence, which I'll probably just post here for you on a speeded up sequence or a B channel or something, just because you can see how mind-numbing it is. And it all worked, of course, with 2 cameras rolling. But I feel like this was an excellent lesson in that the devices aren't trustworthy, you know. They build these hardware wallets as a very safe place to keep your cryptocurrency, and it is not. It is not. It's just a tiny little computer that can fail at any time. You know, if it's backed up properly, a big if. If that company is still in business anymore, a big if, then you can get your money back. But, oh man, that's a lot of ifs. And, too scary for my blood, because I've been messing around computers since I was 5, and so that's 43 years. 43 years I've been working on computers, and if there's one thing, you know, I remember before we even had hard drives, or at least on a consumer level, before we had hard drives, we had cassette tapes for your TRS-80 from Radio Shack. And we all know how reliable cassette tapes are. No. If you're younger, they're not reliable. And when I started using hard drives, it became painfully obvious in a very quick way that if you buy one hard drive, it necessitates buying 2 hard drives, at least 3 times the size of it, a couple years down the line. That's just how it is, because you always have to have a backup. And you always have to keep transferring those files to a fresh drive, and you always have more files than you can really fit. So it always has to be a new drive. It always has to be larger. And you always have to keep feeding the machine, as so to say. And optical drives, you know, they boomed for a while, but you hardly ever see them anymore. And that's a big problem, because for your data, the same way for crypto, if it's not in your possession, if you don't have the physical repository, it's not really yours. You know, the cloud is great until the sun comes out, but you never know. I mean, I have 3 cloud accounts. I have Google, I have Amazon, I have Dropbox. I have them all. But I don't trust them. And you shouldn't trust them. I've lost a lot of data on them, mostly due to software glitches, or it being way too easy to overwrite something using a syncing folder if you depend on that for your primary store of data. Anything in the cloud should only be a secondary repository. It should not be your primary store of data. Anything in the cloud could go away at any moment, and don't forget it. The cloud's great until the sun comes out. So, for me, the best methodology is to always have the primary, usually a flash drive at this point, drive that you do your work on. Secondary physical hard disks, at least 2, that you copy those to, and then also a couple of cloud options that you copy your primary to as well. I know that seems extreme, but computers do not have any archival methods of keeping records. And that's one of the great tragedies for computer art. So much great computer art from the early days has been lost due to technical failures, due to the lack of a truly archival backup. There's no way we can take a computer file and write it into stone. And we finally have halfway good 3D printers now, but they don't really print out your data. If you do have anything that can be printed out in a physical format, that's great. Get a laser printer, use it. If there's anything on the web you really like that you want to be able to refer to later, print that out. Paper's going to last a lot longer than that website. I pretty much guarantee it. At least we have the Internet Archive, or archive.org, these days, and that is a fantastic resource, and I do suggest you put a lot of your own data there if you want it to be kept. That's another good cloud type source, but always make sure you have your own copies. Always make sure you have your own multiple backups. Be the Department of Redundancy department, and maybe you can save your data. I'm going to post in the description too some really good information on why you need to burn all of your data that you want to keep to optical disks. And not just any optical disks, but Goldmaster archival DVD-Rs. They are the best longevity we've been able to get so far out of the computer world. And even though they're pretty long-lived, you can't leave those out in the sun either. It's not like the pyramids of Egypt where you can just leave it out in the desert and it's going to be fine. No. We have a long ways to go before we can achieve that level of technology, I think. There's a whole lot of technology that we had, in the past, 10,000 years ago, that nobody knows about anymore, but if you can think about what would happen 10,000 years down the line from now, would anything you've saved on a computer be accessible or usable? I really doubt it. Unless you have a computer-controlled stone mill, I don't see it happening. Hopefully we get to that point, but we have a ways to go. And that's kind of how I feel about cryptocurrency. Just having that physical dollar in your hand is way more reliable than any bits on a crypto exchange, or even on your own personal hardware wallet. It's all very subject to vaporizing into the ephemera, because it is ephemera. There's nothing solid to it. It's not tangible. It's just a nice concept. And as long as other people are into your concept, that's great. It's a store of value. That's how fiat currency works. That's how Bitcoin works. People think it has value, so it has value. But it's all just a collective agreement, or delusion, if you want to put it that way. Anyway, that's my rant about storing value on unreliable machines. You know, it's a lot harder for that gold coin in your pocket to suffer a hard drive crash. No, it's not going to happen. You could melt it down. It could get vaporized. That takes a lot more work, though. Not that I'm saying you should go and run out and buy a lot of gold. I think that's probably pointless too. The real things of value are your relationships with other people, your own spiritual abilities and path, and trying to help others. And with that, let's close this out. May you be well. May you be blessed. May you be filled with unconditional joy and unconditional love, and shine it out into the whole world. Aloha.